Hello and a warm welcome, everybody. My name is Karina and I work in marketing at Empower here in Cologne. And I'm very delighted to welcome you to today's webinar, Master the Unexpected with Matthias Weiss. Matthias is an experienced public speaking coach who will share valuable tips and tricks on how to handle challenging or unexpected situations during a presentation or public speaking. But before I hand things over to you, Matthias, maybe just one quick note. So you are very welcome to post your questions into the chat, which you will find at the bottom right corner of your screen. And yeah, at the end of the webinar, we will have plenty of time to answer all your questions. And yeah, I think that's all from me. And yeah, I hand over to you, Matthias. The stage is yours. Enjoy and yeah, have fun.
Thank you, Karina, and also welcome from my side and good afternoon or good morning or good evening, depending on where in the world you are watching us. Greetings from Berlin, and we're good to go, I would say. Welcome to Master the Unexpected. So we will be talking about unexpected situations that occur when we are speaking in front of audience. And when I say audience, that can be our team in a team meeting, that can be our fellows in a club or association, as well as our, for instance, shareholders in a big annual shareholder meeting. So that makes no difference in which scenario we are speaking. In basically every scenario, we can expect the unexpected. We can be sure, more or less, that things will happen that we are not expecting, that we're not planning for. And today we'll talk about how to cope with these situations and how to behave and how to handle these situations to maintain control. Now, before I start and tell you lots of things and share lots of knowledge, I would like you to participate if you like and share with me and us in the chat whether you know any of these unexpected speaking situations, either by experience when they really happened to you already, or just in theory or things you heard about. So do you have any idea about what an unexpected speaking situation can be? I'll give you some time if you like to participate and contribute in the chat. That's my chance to take another sip of tea. And be sure, if no one of you writes anything in the chat, I will have tons of stories to share, but I want to give you the possibility to contribute with whatever is current and relevant for you. No contributions so far. Please feel free to also, in the course of the webinar, use the chat to share any thoughts or experiences or ideas or questions. If nothing else happens now in the chat, I will continue because, as I said, I've got more than enough examples of unexpected speaking situations to talk about. So what is common for all unexpected situations is, as the name says, they're not expected. So we cannot influence them. If we had the choice whether to have a blackout or not, if we had the choice whether our equipment, be it audio or video, uh, breaks down or not, we would choose not to. But we are not in charge. We cannot really control this. So what it's about is how to react in these situations when they occur. And what I want to propose to you as like a twist in our mindset, first of all, is to think over a common misconception. Because usually when I talk about unexpected situations, people tend to immediately connect this to negative situations, uncomfortable situations, awkward situations whatsoever. And this results in like a priori uncertainty and maybe even fear when it comes to speaking situations. Good thing is, unexpected can also mean that positive things can happen. Unexpected can also mean that you get great feedback from your audience. Unexpected may be that a person in the audience poses a question while you are speaking, a question that brings you the perfect chance to share even more knowledge and to shine with the things you know and that you're sharing, etc., etc., etc. So before we talk about these unexpected situations, let me make it clear, and please keep that in mind. Unexpected does not at all mean uncomfortable. Can also just as well be positively unexpected. Now, it's about maintaining control today, and there are several reasons, at least two, that I will show you why it's so essential and crucial to maintain control when we are speaking. Let's imagine a speaking situation. So I'm on stage or I'm in meeting room with my team or whatever. And usually the constellation is that I share knowledge that other people don't know. I share ideas that I had that I find to be worth sharing that others don't know about yet. I share my point of view. I share my idea of how the world functions or whatever. So it's me sharing something with my audience. And doing so, I like to use the image of me like going for a walk with my audience. And I lead them through my head, basically, through my thoughts, through my knowledge. And to be a good leader along this way that I go together with my audience, I need to be in control. I need to show people where we're going, why we're going there, and what's next. This is why to keep control for our audience and also for ourselves, it's important to keep the control. Because as I said, we're about to share knowledge, to share perspectives, to share our picture of the world. And we want to be safe and firm and sturdy when it comes to irritations, to provocations, to whatever awkward situations that can occur. We want to share important things, and we do not want to give away control for the sake of the audience and for the sake of our own message that we are sharing. So, maintaining control. What does it actually mean and what are we controlling? Now that we see why it's important for us and for the audience to maintain control, let's talk about what exactly we are controlling. Because talking about control as an like abstract term is quite nice, but let's get it more concrete and more precise. So what you see here is a nice and colorful cloud of words and expressions. And these are, let me say, parameters, different parameters that are connected to your speech. And the list is not complete, the list goes on, but this is just a choice of parameters that you, as a speaker, are in control of. There is quite obvious things like the topic. I mean, of course, if I'm a speaker, I'm in control of the topic. It was me who chose that. I'm in control of, for instance, the pace at which I talk, or the volume, etc., etc., etc. And one of these parameters of my speech, I want to pick out today and take a closer look at with you together. And this is the stimulus and the response. So a very crucial component of my speaking activity is how do I handle stimuli and how do I respond to them? And we already said it before, we cannot influence the stimuli. These happen. They're beyond our influence, so to say. But we can choose the response in order to maintain the control. This is a quote. I will leave you alone with this quote for like 10 seconds, then I will take another sip of my tea. So this quote from Viktor Frankl, Austrian doctor, psychiatrist, neurologist, actually says it all. And this is one of the like basic principles of my everyday work. We cannot control the stimuli. We can control and we must control. We have the power to control our response. And that's what it's about today. What I will do now is to present you like 3 principles that for me are essential for maintaining the control in speaking situations. I will offer you some examples from my everyday life, from my experience on stage, either things that I experienced myself or things that I experienced with colleagues, to show you a variety of possible unexpected situations and how to handle them. And we will then later also get a little deeper into the question of how do I handle reactions spontaneously? How do I react when I am being attacked or provoked on stage? So this will be another focus for later. Let's start with principle number 1 that I want to present to you. No, sorry for that. That was my unexpected situation. I just forgot that I have this wonderful drawing for you, first of all. And let's go through that real quick. So what do we see here? We see different colors being in use. We see a white area, we see a light red area, and we see a dark red area. When we talk about how we react, respond to stimuli, we will first of all have to make the distinction between stimuli that we react to and those that we don't react to. Because let's face it, it is a whole lot of stimuli, of situations, of things happening that we should rather not respond to. So before we talk about how do we respond to stimuli X, Y, Z, let's first of all make the distinction when should we better not react and respond at all. So on the left side, you see the beginning of the curve. These are things that are happening that only I notice. For instance, there's somebody sitting in the front row permanently staring at their cell phone. Is that nice? No. Is that polite? No. Do I notice it? Of course I do. Front row. Do I respond to that? Rather no. Because if I do, I would interrupt myself. And please keep that in mind. We're also doing and thinking for our audience, as I said before. I would not just interrupt myself, I would also interrupt my audience. And is that fair and is that appropriate to interrupt my speaking, interrupt me and the audience, just because one person in the front row is not able to concentrate or really has something real urgent to do on their cell phone? We just don't know. What I'm pointing at is we would rather choose not to respond at all. So remember the quote from Frankl, there is a stimulus and it's our power to choose the response. And in that area, this is why it's not red, this is why it's plain white. I chose not to react. I notice it, don't react. Next step, let's go further to the right on my curve. I notice it, and I am also annoyed because, let's stick to that example, the person in the front row will keep on looking at their cell phone, staring at it, and obviously not paying attention. Still, this can be annoying at one point, but I will still choose not to respond because, again, I would have to interrupt myself and I would interrupt all my audience for this one person. And this is, let's face it, this is not appropriate. Let's go further in the escalation. Let's go further to the right on my curve. There comes a time when I am not just noticing it, I'm not just annoyed by it, but I'm really irritated by it. Example, the person in the front row, permanently staring at their phone, starts to chat with their neighbor at a volume that I cannot ignore on stage. And yes, this is then the time when I start to be irritated. And this is why this area here on the curve starts to be like a little light red. Yeah, this is an area when then I will have to make the decision whether I still ignore that, if I'm able to, or whether I mention it, whether I address these people kindly, politely, maybe only just by saying nothing for 5 seconds and looking, in order to get my quiet back and in order to diminish my irritation. So as soon as it starts affecting me, really affecting me on a long-term view, I might choose to intervene and to react in a different way than ignoring what I had chosen first. And then, of course, there is the dark, the deep red area in my curve when everybody is annoyed and or irritated. So let's stick to the example. If these persons in the front row are chatting with each other and doing things on their phone so that everybody in the room realizes it. So there is then the area reached on my curve when we choose to react, to respond. and we cannot no longer ignore it. We have to address these people in order to have quiet and concentration and focus come back to our audience. So to sum it up, we have the obligation, the chance, or as Frankl said, we have the power to choose, and we let go of the invisible. If nobody notices except us, why would we share things with everybody? We would just irritate everybody and interrupt our message that we're about to deliver. And the other scenario is state the obvious. If things happen that you cannot ignore, for instance, if the guy in the front row talks so loud that everybody hears it, we have to react in order to maintain control. Because there is one thing that is absolutely not control, one thing that is absolutely not sovereign and powerful, namely ignore things that everybody notices. Very nice example from my stage time on stage that I often mention in that context is when I was playing in a theater in southern Germany and parts of the ceiling fell down while I was performing, like directly next to me. It was a big mess, made a huge noise. This is quite an extreme example, I admit, but you know exactly what I'm pointing at. This is something that is happening for everybody to see and for everybody to notice. If I would have chosen just to go on playing and to go on performing as if nothing had happened, I would have made a ridiculous performance, and everybody would have seen that I'm absolutely not sovereign enough and not safe and self-assured enough, and try to ignore something that's obvious. Don't do that either, but make a wise choice. Do I have to address people? Do I have to interrupt or not? And let go of the invisible and state the obvious. Both are means of maintaining the control. Okay. And now let's go to these 3 principles that I had already announced. And please, I want to repeat it at this position. If there's any questions so far, any contributions, any suggestions, any comments, feel free to use the chat at any time. So what does maintaining control actually mean? 3 basic principles for you to take away. It means remaining calm. And as we just said, being calm and remaining calm can mean not reacting at all, or reacting in a way that shows that we are in control, we are calm, we are not being irritated by whatever happens. Let's face it, if we on stage or in front of our team start to lose our calmness, start to lose control, show irritation, this is contagious. And if we don't stay calm, our audience won't stay calm for sure. So it's us to keep calm in order to keep control over the entire scenario. I give you 2 simple examples for situations when we should choose to stay calm and how we do it. First of all, IT issues. It's not long ago that I attended a huge event here in Berlin, and there was a company presenting their like yearly numbers, and the CEO had flown over from the US and presented like an enormous amount of charts with an enormous amount of numbers and impressive figures and curves, even more impressive than the one that I just showed you. And then at one point, he lost the picture from the screen that was lying in front of him on the ground. So he had looked down there on that screen to see his slides with all the impressive numbers and the curves, because of course he was not able to remember these numbers. So he was like depending on this screen. And at one point, the screen broke, there was no more picture, and he had no more figures, numbers, and curves to look at. Now, what he did, without mentioning it, and this is why I give you this example here, because it's about keeping calm. What he did, he chose to just turn backward and look at the slides that were on the huge, huge, huge screen behind him. So he found a substitute while speaking, and nobody would notice that he was no longer looking at the screen in front of him, but looking at the screen behind him. Nobody would notice. The only reason why eventually we learned about his problem was that at one point also the screen behind him lost connection. There was just a black screen then, and it was then that he had to admit that he was no longer seeing anything, and he was, of course, no longer able to continue with his speech. It took like 2 or 3 minutes until all the IT stuff was reestablished, up and running again, no problem. Why do I mention that? I mention that because this is a good example for us keeping calm and waiting for things to get fixed, waiting for a solution to come up if we cannot influence it. And it was beyond his influence. It took the IT guys to get the machine up and running again. But by staying calm, the entire audience could stay calm too. Had he been irritated, had he mentioned that there is just a technical mess going on right now, that would have been contagious. And the audience would have lost their interest, their focus, and maybe his entire speech would have been more or less worthless from that point when you lose the audience. And he chose to stay calm. Everything was fine, 2 or 3 minutes, all machines up and running again, no problem at all. Because he chose not to make it a problem. Second example, quite similar, but funny enough to be worth mentioned separately. It can also happen to the audio devices, not only just to the video, but also to the audio devices. And it was last week that I attended an event with a very, very dear colleague of mine, actress, German TV actress in Hamburg, and her microphone broke down. And that was quite a huge audience. It was about 700, 800 people. So she was definitely depending on the microphone. And this was something that, remember, that was obvious. So there was no way not to mention it. What she did was then to just change from speaking to pantomime. So with gestures and some crazy movements on the stage, she tried to replace her speech, her speaking, her audio, and she made us all laugh a lot. And we enjoyed that situation, and we had a lot of fun on stage and in the audience, just until the audio equipment was fixed again, which again took like 2 or 3 minutes. So it's not eternity. It is just how to bridge that time until things are up and running again. And again, she was not able to influence it. She was depending on the technicians to do their job, which they bravely did, and she entertained us by her creativity and by her ways of stating the obvious and playing with it. And this all requires staying calm. If we stay calm, the audience stays calm. If we stay focused, audience stays focused. All we do basically on stage is contagious. Keep that in mind. What else does maintaining control mean? Second example, second principle that I would like to give to you, being human instead of perfect. Because we are humans, and we better admit that. So whoever has the ambition to go on stage and go in front of the audience, be it an audience at an event or your team or whatever, whoever has the ambition to be perfect, better stay at home, because you won't, because nobody will. 2 examples for being imperfect but still maintaining complete control. A colleague of mine in Switzerland, with whom I played some comedy shows back in the early 2000 years, he had his phone with him on stage in his jacket, which is actually not a wrong thing to do. However, he had forgotten to turn it on silent. So during the performance, all of a sudden, the phone rang. Again, state the obvious. This is nothing that you can ignore. You cannot act as if nothing's happened, because it's obvious. What he did then was pick his phone, act as if he would answer, and he just went like, "Yeah, ma'am, yeah, I took my pills. Yeah, like every day. Yeah, I take my pills. Yeah, okay, bye." Everybody was laughing. We had a whole lot of fun. After the show, backstage, he admitted that he was maximum embarrassed but he would not show because he was secure enough and he was determined to have fun and to give the audience a fun time and to play with his being human instead of being perfect. And it was just a perfect example of how we can react to something by admitting that we're human, that we just made a mistake. However, remember, we can choose how to make people perceive it. And they perceived it as a very funny situation. And talking about myself, for once, I had 2 blackouts altogether in my entire stage career. And one of that was quite a special blackout because it happened during a song that I sang, which was about my own opinion. It was in Munich, many, many years ago. 2 people front row got up during my song, which I was absolutely not able to handle somehow. So I had a complete blackout, forgot my lyrics, and the song was ended in the middle of the song. So what I then at least was able to do was to state that it was quite funny, actually, that had just forgotten my own opinion. So this was not a regular blackout, but I had forgotten my own opinion. Laughters in the audience, laughters on stage, everybody had a good time. Just because I admitted that I had made a mistake. Again, keep that in mind. If it's obvious, state it. And forgive yourself so that the audience can forgive you. You made a mistake. You're human, so what? Third principle that I want to give to you today: be yourself and stay yourself. This sounds rather normal. This does not sound too spectacular, but actually on stage, in front of audience, in front of teams whatsoever, it's for many people the hardest thing to do. So what I mean with this, I will show you in 2 examples. First example, on stage with a cold. Another story from my career, and it's repeating in a way right now because I have to blow my nose. Thanks for your patience. Now, I had a bad cold. I had no voice at all. My nose was running like permanently, and I had a performance to play, an entire solo show, 2.5 hours in southern Germany. And I was actually wanting to cancel it, but my agency asked me to stick to that because we had a sold out venue, 150 people waiting and looking forward to it. So yeah, I went there. But I was obviously in a very bad state. But I chose to be myself and to stay myself and to tell people that I was really, really in a bad state. However, I was happy to share the evening with them, and I was happy that they had come. Now, what happened eventually is that we got so close, the audience and me, that in the end, they applauded long enough for me after each and every song, long enough for me to always blow my nose. And when I was done with blowing my nose, they ended the applause, and not before that. So we had an enormously strong and positive connection, the audience and me. But that was only just possible because I chose to be myself, remain myself, and show myself, expose myself in the state in which I was. And that was not a good state, but it was a great evening, great reviews from the newspapers, one of the best shows I ever played, because I chose to be myself and stay myself. Second example, that is quite a dramatic example, but let's just also face situations that are not so usual, but that can occur. There was a famous German TV show, Saturday night prime time, which is called Wetten, das. And that was like a legendary show. It ran for decades with several hosts. And back in 2010, there was a big, bad accident happening live on TV in one of these shows when an acrobat got badly injured and they had to interrupt the show. And like 15, 20 minutes later, the host came back and the interruption was ended actually in order to continue the show. But during that interruption, the host decided that there was no way for him to continue with Saturday night TV entertainment when somebody had just been badly, badly injured live on TV. And the show was terminated. The show ended in that very minute. Why am I saying this? Because sometimes, believe it or not, maintaining control can also mean say stop. Either because of your own well-being or whatever, or because of things that are happening, occurring in the audience, in the surroundings, in the equipment-related conditions whatsoever. Saying stop and saying, I cannot do this anymore, is also a means of maintaining control. If this is what you feel like, if this is what feels good and right for you, this is also a means that you have in your repertoire. So here there are again these three principles that I want you to take away today. This is the chance for you to take a picture if you like, or get in touch with me about these and other principles that I can happily share with you. There will be my contact data at the end of the webinar. So in the beginning, I told you, I announced that there will be a special focus today on how to handle situations when we are being attacked or provoked or being treated unfairly in front of audience. And there is tons and tons and tons of methods and phrases and mechanisms that we can use. I just brought you quick wit, that's what we call it. I just brought you 5 possible techniques how to handle provocations, aggressions, or just situations when we don't know what to say. Again, the repertoire is much bigger, but keep in mind that it's not about having a number of phrases in your archive to use them depending on the situation, but it's rather about being safe, secure, self-aware, and yourself enough to remain flexible and to act and respond appropriately to whatever situation occurs. What we can do if somebody, for instance, tries to attack us or provoke us in front of the audience is to phrase a follow-up question and thus give the question back to the one who posed it. So if we are being attacked by a question and we react by saying, I'm sorry, I'm afraid I did not properly understand that. Could you please repeat? This will make several things happen. First of all, the attention goes from us to the person who tried to provoke us. And usually it's exactly about attention why these people try to provoke us. But if I put the focus back from me to that person, this can very often be quite a bit more attention that they were obviously seeking in the first place. So they might start to get uncomfortable. And if you then ask them to repeat their aggression, which it basically was, this often, very often, leads to them already diminishing the grade of aggression when they repeat their question. So this is just about rejecting to take the offer of getting into aggression and counter-aggression, but just redirect the focus and make this person, most likely make this person feel uncomfortable while the person actually had been trying to make us uncomfortable. Works in a very, very lot of situations. And the conversation is, in most of the cases, ended then. This will not go on because this person did not anticipate to be in the focus of the attention. Concession without consent. This is also a mechanism that can make it possible to end the conversation before it actually begins. So if somebody comes up with a weird point of view, or again, provokes you, comes up with an aggression, there is one single sentence that you can use to terminate this. You just say, okay, that's a different way to see things. Full stop. The discussion is ended then. There is no discussion. This is your comment on whatever the person said, period. So you're not insulting. You are not reacting with a counter-aggression. You concede that this person has this point of view, but you do not start to elaborate on the other person's point of view, although exactly that could have been what the person was trying to make you do. But you end the discussion before it begins. It's as simple as that. Admit. So people often ask, what do I do when I post a question that I cannot answer? And yeah, again, we are human. And we should be ourselves and stay ourselves. And if there's things we don't know, let's admit it. This is a question that I cannot answer right now. Full stop. We're human. We're not Wikipedia. We're not a lexicon. So there is things we don't know. Why not just admit it? Humor is counter. So if somebody obviously is trying to provoke you with something that has got nothing to do or almost nothing to do with what you're just saying, humor is counter. Just one sentence. Wow, this is a very creative question that you're just posing, but I'm afraid it's got nothing to do with what I'm talking about. Again, full stop. So this is even like a slightly smiling phrase that you can use. And again, you're not insulting, you're not responding to an aggression with an aggression. You're even giving it a smile, but again, terminate the discussion before it actually starts. And to give you a fifth and last example on how to react on these situations, tidy up, that's what I call it. So somebody's more or less trying to enter the stage and to involve you into a discussion by attacking you personally, on a personal level. And this is what you should do then. Share your observation. So I'm afraid you're just talking to me on a personal level, which has got nothing to do with my speech and with my message. So this seems to be something personal, and let's keep it personal, and let's talk through that, if you will, one-on-one, period. Again, no aggression, not being impolite whatsoever, but you are in control. Remember that. And you are in control of, remember the cloud of terms that I showed you colorfully in the beginning. You are in terms of so many parameters of your speech, some of which are the topic and the pace and the whatever. And the topic was one of these parameters, and this is yours to stick to. And if anybody chooses or tries to change the topic, no. I'm afraid this is getting personal and it deviates us from the topic. Please, let's talk about that one-on-one, period. Tidy up the scene. Do not let anybody enter the scene with any provocations or aggressions. 5 principles out of a huge number, and it all comes down to being safe, secure, self-aware, human enough to be flexible and not to give away control. Maintaining control means not getting involved. This is like the summary of all these 5 and the summary of everything that's got to do with quick wit. Let's not get involved. Let's stick to our message, our topic, and our speech. Last chapter. We're almost done. But let's get back to the mindset where we started in the very beginning when I told you that unexpected does not automatically mean uncomfortable. 3 quick shifts and twists for our mindset for you to take away today. This is a quote not from me, but from Master Yoda. The Star Wars fans among us might recognize it. Do or do not. There is no try. What do I mean with that? If we go on stage, if it's about maintaining control, there is no try. We do it. We speak, we deliver our message, we share our knowledge, and we do not try to do it, but we do it. And we keep the control, maintain the control during the whole time that we're speaking. We don't try to do it, we do it. We're an exclamation mark. We're not a question mark. We're an exclamation mark when we are in front of the audience. It's exactly what you think it is. Remember the person, the colleague with the cell phone ringing during the performance. He afterwards told me that he was maximum embarrassed, but he wouldn't show. If he would have showed that he was embarrassed, everybody would have noticed it, and the show would have been, well, not a disaster, but a mess, I would say. So if we are in control, we can determine whether we make an embarrassing situation feel for everybody to be embarrassed. We can decide whether we make an IT issue or an audio equipment issue a big mess or even fun. It is exactly what we think it is and what we make out of the situation. And we are in complete control to make whatever we like out of a situation. And the third mindset twist: on the deck of a ship in rough seas, it is not the person that stays flexible that falls over first, but it's the person who tries to stay firm and fixed in one position. If the deck of a ship, if the entire ship is moving, keep moving. Don't try to stay all firmly and fixed, because you'll fall over. Stay dynamic, stay awake, keep moving, and choose the right reaction. This is it for today. And let me end with a little hint for next February. If you like, we can meet again in next February with another topic, which will be get to the point. So we will learn how to speak accurately, how to form our thoughts, and how to put our thoughts into words and words into action on stage to communicate what we want precisely, directly. Maybe I'd be happy to. We see each other again next February. This was it from my side. As I announced before, this is my contact data. So if anybody of you feels like getting in touch with me, either for a 30-minute talk or to get in touch with me via LinkedIn, I'll be happy to. Thank you.
Great. So thank you very much, Matthias. I think that was a really interesting webinar with great practical examples. I especially liked the example with the person with the incoming call. I think that was, yeah, a truly creative and impressive response or action on this situation. And yeah, now it's time for your questions. So please feel free to add them to the chat. I think we have a few more minutes, so
We do. Yeah.
let's see if something comes up. So I don't see any questions so far. But yeah, while we're waiting, Matthias, maybe one question from my side.
Yeah.
Is it actually possible to learn or to train yourself to respond more confident or creative on such unexpected situations like the man with the incoming call did?
Yeah. I think the basic principle for all of that is to be aware of ourselves.
Mhm.
So when we are in a situation, when we are exposed on stage, in front of the team or whatever, we are not there to please people or to anticipate what people might want to hear or how people might want us to act or behave or what to say or what not to say. So being aware of myself in this very situation, with my message, with my things that I find good and bad and right or wrong,
Mhm.
it sounds very simple, but it gives me the security to be rooted within myself. And if I'm rooted, I can react on basically everything as long as I'm aware of myself and aware of my, let's take a short excursion into psychology, my self-worth and the worth of what I'm saying and what I am, just with my very own being.
Okay, yeah, totally makes sense. Okay, so let's have another look at the chat. So still no questions there. So I think everyone is quite satisfied. No open questions. If something comes up to your mind later, so please feel free to contact or connect with Matthias on LinkedIn or book a meeting with him directly. And yeah, that just leaves me to say thank you very much, Matthias. Thank you all for joining. And
Thank you.
yeah, I wish you all a wonderful rest of the day. And yeah, hopefully we see ourselves at the next webinar. Thank you very much. And yeah, goodbye.